Alan Clements Uncensored. Thank you for listening to my podcast. A few notes about the presentation. After years of scripted talks, many of them methodically outlined, some even memorized, at least in part, I decided to drop that style and simply speak spontaneously from my heart. So that's what I do. My talks are raw and improvisational. I make them up as I go along. In addition to my World Dharma talks, I also offer at times readings from my books, Instinct for Freedom, A Future to Believe in, The Voice of Hope, and Wisdom for the World. I also offer readings of my personal notes, sometimes guided meditations, dialogues from my World Dharma public forums, interviews from radio and television, and sections from my show, Spiritually Incorrect Meets Relationship Incorrect, The Great Reckoning, and the occasional conversation with someone I find interesting. I also want to express my deep gratitude to the people who have made donations to me, either a one-time or recurring donation, either on the support page of my website, alanclements.com, or pledged a monthly amount as little as $1, perhaps $3 or even $5 a month, through my Patreon site. If you're inspired to do so, you can support this podcast and my work by making a monthly pledge at Patreon. That's patreon.com, patreon.com/Alan Clements, and there you'll find my page. You can use a credit card or pay through PayPal, and your monthly pledge, that's what it takes, just a few minutes to set up, allows me not only to do my work, it allows me to create my art, use my voice, speak my Dharma, free of commercial consideration or advertisers. Thank you from my heart for taking the time to listen to my podcast, and thank you for your generous support. I hope you enjoy the presentation. Super honored to be here at, I love the name, Against the Stream. A guest, an invitation from Noah. Thank you, Noah. Noah and I are acquaintances with a long history and a deep regard for a lineage. I wanted to say Buddhism, but that's not really my thing. But a lineage of, I would use the word sparingly, radical transparency, radical honesty. I want to use the word transformation, but I'm not so sure. I know there's a lot of changes that seem to be good, but for every change I've had for the positive, shift the context, change the state of mind, and I'm somewhere other that's so challenging that I can't believe that I'm doing things that I never thought that I would do. I'm very careful about transformation. I want to use the word disclaimers as well. I'm by no means a teacher. I'm a recovering teacher. I stopped the label about 23 years ago, pretty much. I was a former Buddhist monk for a short time in the country of Myanmar or Burma. I was thrown out of that country by the dictatorship several times. I returned clandestinely a number of times. I became very actively involved in their revolution with Burma's Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi. Did a book with her. I expanded my so-called Dharma engagement, if you will, from the complexity of a calm, composed monastic environment where I led retreats. Many of you have done retreats before, meditation retreats. Most of you, anyone who hasn't. What a beautiful choice to make in life, fair enough? What a gift that we have these temporary oases to feel, to reflect, to cry, to be vulnerable, to hurt, to breathe, and to look at our hearts, look at our minds. By way of saying, I have looked sufficiently at this point to realize I know very little. And I say that with sincerity. I've been humbled
through my pride, my addiction to arrogance, even an addiction to enlightenment, if there can be such a thing. And I know there's lots of Buddhist teachers in the world who are addicted to their beliefs about themselves. It's one thing to be taken in by coke or freebase or methamphetamine or alcohol or masturbation or sex or money or image, but it's so easy to deny the narratives of success, beauty, of wealth, of status, of adoration. And the most insidious addiction I've seen is hypocrisy. How easy it is to deny what you don't see about yourself in the position of knowing, ethical certainty, arrogance, of pride. Have we seen it? I've seen it enough to check myself today to stay human, to stay grounded. By way of saying my disclaimer, I don't need to really say it more than once. What I say is my own hard-earned evidence. I don't suggest that you hear it or see it, and I'm talking to adults, from any other place in me sharing my journey. I don't expect that you believe it or follow it. I would, in fact, support you in not believing it or following it, but to find, obviously, your own way. So I'm really honored to be here. It's a real gift to me to be here. I would normally encourage meditation, but I'm trying to overcome the addiction to that as well. I was a diehard Theravadan insight meditation practitioner that took meditation seriously. I can't count the amount of weeks and months in slowing down. I'm going to talk today and tonight a little bit about what I call the Dharma beyond Buddhism. It's not to diss Buddhism, but I've tried very hard to break my fetish, my addiction to the incredible philosophy of the Buddhist teaching. It's so remarkable. It's so refined. It's so psychedelic, as you know. It's so fucking certain. And it's so time-tested because you can just put a little dab on your mind and you see, right? The power of mindfulness. So you know experientially, why this is really an amazing experience. It's so real, it's so experiential, it's so transformational. So I'm trying to find, if you will, tease out of my own little forays into the philosophy, into the teachings, into the scriptures, with a fairly adequate professional good training in Burma with the Mahasi Sayadaw, who's considered the father of the mindfulness movement, his successor, Sayadaw U Pandita, who came to the West a few times and taught. But he, under no circumstance, sanctioned any teachers in these traditions, I being one of them. Share only what you know from your own experience, and let that be sufficient. Share your experience. And so today I don't really want to teach meditation because I don't do that. I'd rather encourage you to be meditative. There's one thing that I've learned about the Dharma beyond Buddhism. In tonight's talk, a little bit of an exploration into a topic called addictions. And I know I don't want to come across in any way as knowing a lot about them, except that I've been steeped in them my whole life. Alcoholic at the age of 12. Cigarettes at the age of 13. Masturbation, pre-birth. I was undulating with the instinct for intimacy right off the bat. Where that urge came from, I have no idea, but I liked it. And being a heterosexual, I was absolutely enthralled with the feminine. So much so that I became a monk to become celibate. And I had no idea I could become addicted to renunciation, abstinence, silence, slowing down. So I want to talk tonight a little bit about the range of addictions that I've seen. Not the obvious ones like liquids and fluids and substances and smoke alone, but the more insidious ones often that come in the terms of narratives, speech patterns, ideas, identity. How many people I've seen over the years with my teachers, very talented, intellectually minded, refined individuals who loop, cognitively loop. They'll say one thing and they'll say the same thing in a different way next week. And you begin to see that the identification with an identity is in some ways one of the most insidious forms of addiction humanly possible. The addiction to certainty. I've been in war zones where really, really cool people, tattooed people, sexy people, brown-eyed people, philosophers, musicians, yoga teachers, all kinds of psychoanalysts, all of a sudden like this gentleman and this lady, and this gentleman and this gentleman and this woman. We're all hanging. We're getting down tonight in the intimacy of a shared truth. And we hear over the radio wave, we see on television that there is an individual fanning the flames of xenophobia, prejudice, and discrimination. Have you seen that coming out of our own television sets today from most corners of the world? And all of a sudden we deny it, we push it away. We're still enthralled with our own little club, our cult, our own little thing that we're doing. The next thing you know, Sarajevo was surrounded by these people for 43 months. They were being picked off like rats. Because why? They were of mixed ethnicity, mostly Bosnian Muslims, mixed with Croatian Catholics and Bosnian Serbs. And this lady and this gentleman, I asked him, from what ethnicity do you come from? Well, why would you ever ask? We all come from America. We're all here as immigrants. Fair enough? We exploited the indigenous people. We killed them. We're in denial of a fucking genocide. What addiction are we overcoming except the hysteria of denial? Where could we pause in tonight's presentation as a collective and pay homage to feel into the weeks, the months, the immeasurable blood and anguish of forefathers and foremothers and animals on the very soil that we're recovering in? So my point here is that it's so easy to fixate an identity and develop a strategy of Buddhism or meditation or recovery within that context, but deny the more concentric context that we actually are embedded in. When I left monastic life, I was free of addictions. As soon as I came back to the West, out of that context, it was amazing to me to see how I picked up the habits that I left at the door before I got there. Contextual shifts, language shifts, company, companionship, tone. There's so many different ways. Let me get practical here. I had one particular experience when I was watching television where this particular photographer was photographing a very adept monkey in a zoo with a very adept monkey trainer, if you can envision this. A little bit like a meditation teacher with a sangha. And this particular monkey had been trained in doing all forms of yoga asana on a chair, while there are lots of photographers around, including Yoga Journal and National Geographic, photographing this monkey doing downward-facing monkey, upward-facing dog, finger in your face asanas, whatever you needed to do. The monkey was trained to do what his zookeeper had trained him to do. You can see where I'm going there. There's so many adept meditators who are trained to do what they are trained to do in the denied cage of their own consciousness and in the context of a civilization embedded in a hysteria of violence. When I left America, I was in recovery from the hell of growing up in such abject violence. I've said it so many times, and I know you know this as well as I do. Addiction is fucking good news, man. There is no recovery from addiction. The more awake you get, the more crazier it's going to get. Against the Stream is an appropriate example of what we're faced with here in the issues. Do you hear her calling out? Greta Thunberg, 16 years old, in Sweden, nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Hey, you guys at Against the Stream and all of LA, the house is burning. With climate disruption, the likelihood of near-term extinction, total economic, environmental collapse. Do you hear what I hear? She's saying, let no meeting go by unless you echo these words. What are you doing in your own Dharma, in your own awakening, in your own recovery, to pay attention to something larger than your own need to be free in the context of your denial. I'm not making points here other than inviting a dialogue. Now, this poor monkey was being photographed endlessly by this photographer with lots of viewers. I was watching it on TV. And this particular monkey was doing asana after asana. And the photographer from Yoga Journal or National Geographic, I'm not sure exactly, asked the zookeeper of the monkey keeper, if the monkey could simply do some form of asana standing without connection or attachment to the chair. Could the monkey just do simply the tree posture without artifice? Now, the general belief in recovery and addictions is that we must be free of the very things that we've been grasping onto. Fair enough? Grasping is seen as the second of the noble truths of the Buddha, attachment. And attachment, in a way, is actually something that I've grown very fond of over the years. When I was in war zones in Croatia, in Bosnia, and Burma, there are good people, men and women, who will do everything in the world to fight for your sorry ass. They're so attached to the survival of their own kind and being right from wrong. They're just willing to be discerning. Attachment should not be marginalized. It should be seen mindfully and intelligently in context of what should I hold on to? I have a 12-year-old daughter. Do not fuck with her. I'm going to be so attached to squeezing your neck until it turns blue. Fair enough? How do you know what to hold and what to let go of? And so this particular monkey in the zoo was being photographed, and the monkey started to quiver. He had no attachment, no ability to hold on to the chair. And the photographer asked the monkey keeper, what's going on with the monkey? He's so identified with grasping and holding, he can't stand on his own 2 feet. Well, this poor monkey is seen now, my point. He's marginalized as somehow being used in a story to point to the folly of grasping. Fair enough? You could almost hear me saying that poor monkey that we continually hear in texts and teachers that holds deep into the fruit of a coconut that's been hollowed out, that's tied to a stake, and the monkey's so dumb and stupid, even when the monkey hunters come, the poor monkey can't see the wisdom of letting go. Fair enough? Propaganda. Monkeys should cling. Are you with me? Monkeys by nature cling. Humans by nature attach. We need to learn a different language. My point here halfway through. So much of recovery and addiction for me is about language. I refuse to participate in denigrating attitudes about myself anymore. I invite you, are you willing to call off marginalizing, demonizing, and pathologizing any aspect of your life? Taking the fear out of phenomena. Taking the fear out of alcohol. Taking the fear out of cigarettes. Taking the fear out of culture. And doing everything that we can to empower a much more nimble, mindfully intelligent approach to looking at complexity, looking at desire, looking at attachment, looking at the concept of addiction from a new lens, 3/4 of the way through. The poor monkey, now here the monkey is being marginalized as somehow inferior, when in fact none of the human beings in this particular story realize the monkey has been caged. I don't know about you. I do not like the culture I've been embedded in, the global culture. I've studied violence and war. Like I said a little while ago, good fucking people can turn on each other just simply because they're unmindful of the depth of their hysterias to fuse with identities, ethnicities, and language. Those often who are in addiction states and admit it, transparency, the willingness to be accountable to the phenomena of your own soul. Pause. How honest are we with who we are? How honest can I be with my own consciousness and my own mind? The poor monkey, the poor monkey keeper, is rattling the poor monkey to do the asana more appropriately, when in fact the monkey has been trained to do monkey yoga asana. How many teacher trainings today that we see basically in the acro yoga, not to judge the acro yoga world or the silent meditator world, but how many trained teachers do we see in teacher training to train captivity? My point, the Dharma beyond Buddhism. How do we know that what we're doing in the service of liberty is not in fact self-enslavement? And so it comes up to the issue here of this poor monkey has got someone attending to him that he's probably so identified with, because he probably got locked up as a young particular man, was probably given food because of the encroachments of humans on his particular habitat, and became thoroughly dependent on the human's idea of goodwill and was manipulated into monkey yoga. How many of us have gone into the sense deprivation of long-term meditation practice to download the dogma of Buddhism, of Hinduism, of Islam, of ISISism, of Al-Qaedaism, of economicism, of republicanism, of marginalizing this and thatism? When are we willing to really totally reclaim the authenticity of our own lives and the totality of our own lives, and be willing to go against the stream of all structures that denigrate? And how do we know the difference between self-enslavement and collective transformational liberty? Coming to the end of this. What would be the appropriate response of people who witness this thing about the yogi or the monkey? It would be to open the cage and introduce this particular monkey back to the natural habitat of their own being. Now, obviously, we live in a world that's totally driven by economic needs and the potential of these economic needs and these consumptions of all of us. That we're at the edge. Greta is saying, hey, listen, you guys, no matter how much meditation you're doing, we're at the precipice of a likely extinction. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger or be a downer particularly. We have a 16-year-old who's telling all of her compatriots in school worldwide, cut Fridays going to school out of your life. Why? Because all you fucking adults, all these scientists and people in political office are in absolute denial in the cult of their own pride, many of them mindfully killing civilians in many other cultures and running capitalistic corporate slave machines in this incredible suicidal culture that we're embedded. Welcome to something beyond recovery. We're not in recovery. We're in rebellion. And that rebellion isn't against something except the forces of denigration. I'll come to the end of this, both inside but also in society. I don't know about you, but I read this book years ago and I met the gentleman, James Hillman. He's a famous Jungian therapist. He wrote a book called 100 Years of Psychotherapy, and things are getting worse. You could argue the same thing is going down in the mindfulness meditative Buddhist world, in the Muslim world, the Christian world. It's getting bleak and bad. He made the comment to me after an interview that he did and I followed, that when he began to awaken to the cult of his own Jungianism, he realized that many of his clients, steeped in ongoing sessions, didn't get any better. Until all of a sudden he'd get letters from them saying that when they moved to Illinois or to Chicago or to Minneapolis or to Hawaii or to Costa Rica, instantly all that they struggled to deal with transformed and changed. He became aware that it was very much a context issue. I think that's what's interesting to me as I close tonight, is we don't need to rely so exclusively on the belief that I'm 100% responsibility for my own mind alone, or that I can transform my own mind simply by being more and more mindfully aware of my own mind, watching my mind and my greed, my fear, my need for this and that, and doing all that I can to influence negative addictions with positive addiction, and hanging out with more intimate members of the Sangha and constantly, when in fact, there's something to be said for, and I pause right here, I don't know about you, but I've come to the place of seeing that by and large, anyone in positions of authority is by and large pretty much full of shit. They are hiding the best kept secret of all, is the addiction to deception. Addiction to hypocrisy, moralizing, finger fucking pointing. There's no need to name names. They know who they are. They know the bastions of hypocrisy, self-deception, shame, worry, and denial. They teach how you are unaware of your own latent, uncharted trauma. Only you, because of that unmindfulness, could do these particular things. And I deem you unfit to do this or that based upon my idea of what's right and wrong. When in fact, they're the fucking monkey on the chair, trained to do exactly what they thought they were trained to do. But in this case, at least the monkey was trained. They're untrained. Often those who moralize and point their finger are the least evolved among us. The ultimate culprit I've seen, and I saw my teacher in the West and the East teaching, Mahasi Sayadaw, Sayadaw U Pandita. He said the worst meditators, you know who they were? He actually would dare to say that. There's someone who actually ardently meditates. He'd call them, they are the worst meditators. That's so down, isn't it? Imagine being called, you're among the worst of the meditators. I'm going like, whoa, man, that's heavy. Who are they? Burmese Buddhist monks. Learned monks, elders, strong, good-looking, articulate, Alejandro monks, monks from Brazil, monks that are sexy and cool, monks that know their Dharma, their dogma, their unbelievable eloquence, that have big numbers. He went on like this in my own kind of parapsychologically phrasing. They're the worst among the meditators. Why? Hear me out. They mimic. Look around. You guys don't seem to mimic. Look at how weird and strange and good-looking and odd you are. You are doing something against the stream. You've named your Sangha to say no to the flow. The worst meditators. He's saying this to me in front of lots of fucking monks. That is the Burmese way. They just call you on your megalomania. They call you on your ego. It's a culturalism to basically call out the foibles of the human soul. It's not to ridicule or to mock. Yes, that too. But I ask you as we close today, are you inviting that level of transparency in your Sangha? Are you willing to evolve a dialogue within our own group, our own souls, to do all that we can to exemplify the integrity of self-honesty? Meditation to me isn't a postural preference. It isn't just sitting. I'm a state of sitting, I love it. But there's so many meditators that suck. Why? Because they're in postural denial of their inner posture, of denied certainty, hypocrisy. I have no fucking clue why people lie. I have no idea why I lied. All I can say, it was a bad God, a bad design. It was a bad DNA. It wasn't just my mom and dad. They were decent people. I still became an asshole. I still became a drug dealer. I still became an addict. I still deceived myself and students and people. I still lied about this and that. And I still stole. I still. To this very day, I don't. Unless I need to. And that need could be any moment, any time. Fair enough? It's called being human. I walked out of my flat in Zagreb, in Sarajevo, during the war. In Zagreb, during the war in Croatia. We're among the privileged that had a flat and heat. 500,000 people lived on the street. People like us that had Mercedes, that had yoga studios, that had private practices, that lived in Marina del Rey. They lived in beautiful flats, an apartment. They had a Beverly Hills. These motherfuckers were on the street because someone didn't like their ethnicity. I've been hearing this coming out of the White House sometimes. I've been hearing this coming out of England. I've been hearing this come out of Burma. I've been hearing this come out of Africa. I hear it. Do you hear toxic discrimination anywhere? Prejudice, racism? You have to be very, very careful. And I said, Alan, put yourself in the mind and body of these people. You've been meditating in that quiet flat with heat in the middle of the winter. What about these 500,000 people on the street? Shift your fucking context, man. That day when I reflected like that, I got off Prozac. You know why? I've been on it for 6 years. I said, I want to authenticate my emotions. I want to learn to cry again. I want to learn to cry again. I went right back upstairs, poured some scotch, and smoked a cigarette. That night we had a party. There were so many parties in Zagreb. People throwing out Valium, ecstasy, marijuana, hashish, speed. The whole city was jazzed on substances. And when we danced at night for that year, one of the only places you could do was nightclubs that were underground. And I'll close with this, my lasting Dharma teaching for myself. Because dictatorship, fascism, bigotry, and toxic discrimination were embedded in culture there, it was a three-way ethnic cleansing. They wanted to remake civilized people, good people, artistic people, creative people, ordinary human citizens with regard for human rights and free speech. They wanted to shape them into the same homogenized nothingness of their own denied soul. And so when we danced at night, everyone had a kind of an unspoken vow. Let no two of us dance in the same way. They can't take our uniqueness from us, our diversity, our freedom. No matter what you do, surrounded by soldiers who want freedom. It's the same context today. I invite us as we close. We might meditate, we might think of the next retreat, we might think of Greta, we might think of our shame and fear, but let's up the ante to the immediacy, the radical immediacy of our Dharma being, not our Dharma practice. When I interviewed political prisoners in Burma, how did you get through the darkest times? We brought, many of them said, the immediacy of our dignity to the forefront of our souls. When I meditate today, I try not to prefer a posture. I try to communicate to me the importance of self-reverence, self-respect, transparency, humility, and the immediacy of embodied dignity. That to me is the greatest way to fend off the associations, the hallucinations, the addictions of culture, society, and division. How well can I embody my integrity? How well can I be willing to be self-honest? How willing will I be to this gentleman, Alan, to be honest and accountable? How willing will I be in times of need to share bread with this man as my brother, my father, my sister, my God, my teacher, my Buddha, my awakening, my enlightenment? It happened in Sarajevo. It's happening all over the world. I walk the streets, even of Santa Monica, and I see a lot of people there that I could not imagine being in their body. And I ask us, where is our Dharma today? Where is our meditation? How do we occupy the asana of full willingness to embrace the beauty of our being as we are? So I invite us, I'm not saying anything that you should do, not to be in recovery. U Pandita Mahasi Sayadaw would encourage us to see meditation as a flower. Your mindfulness is the fragrance of that flower. Be in expanding beauty, not in overcoming darkness. They would constantly tell us, you do not open a flower by examining the darkness between the petals. Learn your light, Alan. Learn your water. Learn your oxygen. Learn your soil and your minerals. I invite us. The Dharma beyond Buddhism, what are your life? What's your soil? What is your oxygen? And how available are you, Alan, to these states of inner consciousness that nurture an asana that isn't necessarily dependent on this? Relax. So I invite you, as I would invite myself, as we move in and out of this room, our homes, our cars, our relationships, making love, taking a bath. If I were to leave anything with you, if we never saw each other again, beautify, beautify, beautify. Identify the states in our own mind that are beautiful. Authenticity, integrity, dignity, trust, transparency, accountability, openness, patience, empathy, compassion, metta, loving kindness. Write them down. That's the Dharma beyond Buddhism. All these religions and philosophies has a relationship to these states. Know them, let them nurture our awakening. Be in a meditative state of being rather than sitting or walking or standing or in retreat alone. Then, when we do sit, when we do go to a retreat, all the better. So from my heart to yours, thank you for letting me get down with you, talk with you, share with you.
That has been Alan Clements Uncensored. Thank you for listening. You can find the entire list of my podcasts at alanclements.com, along with my books and upcoming events and live broadcasts. In addition, you can also book a private session with me if you wish by phone or Skype on the website. If you're a regular listener or simply feel moved to support my work, you can make a one-time donation or a recurring donation, a tax-deductible one, in any amount you feel comfortable, either on the support page of alanclements.com or a monthly pledge through my Patreon site at patreon.com/AlanClements. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and thank you for sharing word of it among your friends and on social media. Thank you from my heart. Until the next time, blaze on with fearless love.